and obviously they're terrible.
Yeah.
Because everyone who starts out is terrible in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, that's part of, like, why I'm having a good time out here, because, like, hey, like, I already have an act, you know what I mean? Like, I've been doing this, you know what I mean? So I come out here, and I'm not necessarily feeling, like, intimidated by people, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Which I thought I would be, you know? I thought I'd come out here and be like, oh, man, like, there's all these fucking, like, you know, just guys who are, like, at the top of their game, you know? And there are some of those guys out here, but there is also a lot of bullshit out here. Which I don't mean in a mean way. I'm just saying, like, you know, that's just what happens when you start out.
Well, you know, from what I've heard from other comics out there, it's a lot of guys, which I understand it's LA, are like just wanting to be actors, and so they get up on stage and they'll just do some shit just to try to be seen on stage and shit like that. Have you encountered that? I mean, are you seeing that it's a lot of that, or?
Well, it's hard to tell. I mean, especially when you're first starting out, like, I don't know how many people start out comedy being like, I am going to be a fucking comedian, you know, as opposed to just like, oh, let me try this. This looks cool. This looks like another way of performing that could be interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there are a lot of guys who are like, oh, I'm doing an improv class, and I'm taking acting class, and I'm doing this and that. You know, I mean, in fact, even I'm doing that. I'm taking an acting class right now. You know what I mean? Just to practice, you know, I mean, the fact is, I mean, I love doing stand-up, and I always am going to do stand-up. But I do enjoy acting too, you know what I mean?
I agree with you completely, man. And you're in a place where I would think, especially being that you've got your act honed on stage, it's got to be fun for you to be in a place where you have the ability to try all the other things, I would think. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we'll see what happens. It's fun, you know. Like I said, I mean, I'm always going to do stand-up, and I mean, there's plenty of guys out there that are like that I don't necessarily think that makes them any worse stand-up comedians.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's plenty of stand-up comedians who are also, like, actors and shit. I mean, even Chris Rock is basically also an actor.
Yeah.
Even though that's not exactly probably what he's, you know, when you think Chris Rock, you probably think stand-up comedian, right? But, you know, you see my point.
Yeah. Well,
and that doesn't make him any worse of a stand-up comedian. So I don't necessarily, like, knock people who are also doing it maybe as a stepping stone. You know, it's like, I really don't give a fuck why people do anything.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck. You know what I mean?
Oh, I agree with you there, man.
It's like, oh, this guy just wants to do stand-up and acting. It's like, okay.
It's just those jackasses, like you hear the New York comics who are like, New York's the only place you can do comedy and all this shit. And
I mean, I could see the point in terms of, like, it's like, well, if you don't commit to stand-up, like, you're not going to get that good because it's so hard to do. You know, so there is something, you know, to say for that. That doesn't make sense. There is something to be said for that, yeah. But, you know, that doesn't mean you can't commit to stand-up and also do all this other bullshit that you want to do, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So what's your favorite stage that you've been on while out in L.A.?
Well, I don't know. I guess I like. Well, I haven't been to the Improv since I moved out here, but I've been to the Improv before.
Burp it out, Phil. Just burp it out, man. I can tell you.
I've been there before, and that was like fucking awesome. But one place I've been going up a lot is this place that's actually near where I live right now, called the West Side Comedy Theater. And it's actually like an improv theater, and it's actually pretty fun to go up on because it's kind of like, well, not sound like, this sounds so pretentious, but I feel like it's like kind of like a smart audience.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like an audience that's really into comedy, you know what I mean? So I feel like you could kind of experiment with them a little bit, but they're also kind of tough because they're primed for improv. So anything I think that feels like you're reciting scripted material is not going to be received quite as well as like something that feels a little more off the cuff.
Yeah.
Which is why I also feel like it's a great place for trying out new material. And I've been having a good time just throwing out like new shit at them and like really feeling like I could get a good gauge on it. And they're kind of like with me and they're listening. But they're also pretty tough in the sense that, you know, I feel like audiences like that aren't always so much into like the kind of like sexist, misogynistic type shit that I like to do.
The blue material?
I mean, because they are so progressive.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like they're like, oh, we're not supposed to laugh at this. That could be interpreted as racist or sexist. Okay? So there's a lot of positives and negatives, but I feel like it's a good place to sort of work out your shit. You know what I mean? Because it is, on the one hand, they give you some leeway. On the other hand, they're kind of challenging.
Yeah. Oh, that's my experience with any improv theater that I've performed in. Like doing stand up in improv. I feel that they cannot take or they're not with you at all on anything blue or anything like that. Like, I was trying out some new stuff last week on retards and abortion, and they were totally not. They shut the.
All you had to say was retards and abortion, and I started laughing.
Yeah, I know, right? That's just the difference between, I guess, our mind and the improv crowd.
Is that what it says on your set list? Retards and abortion?
Let's see, what does... I think I got it around here somewhere. Regretful abortion is what the abortion part's called, and then the retard part is called the R word. So...
that's actually why I'm not usually very crazy about... Like, people are always like, man, aren't colleges, like, so great to do? And it's like, not really. They're, like, really fucking politically correct.
Yeah.
You know? Like, they almost feel kind of brainwashed to me in a weird way, you know what I mean? In the sense that it's like, whoa, we can't talk. There's no racism. Everything's, you know what I mean? Like, everything in their mind is, like, things as they should be, not as they are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, having said that, some of the best audiences are college crowds that aren't actually at a college. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like you take the college kids and you put them in a bar or something or a comedy club that's not in the college, that's a lot of fucking fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But somehow being in the college, well, first of all, you gotta think about, you know, I'm about to fucking, assuming anyone looks at this, I'm about to fucking blackball myself from being in the colleges. But whatever. You know, so here's the deal, bro. You gotta think about it this way. When student activities put together a comedy show, especially when it's a comedian who's not exactly famous.
Yeah. Like,
for example, this guy. The only kids who are going to go see that are basically fucking nerds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who've got nothing else to do. When I was in college, all right, the only people who ever went to any student activity shit, unless it was like a Jon Stewart who's coming, that might be a little bit different because it's like, oh shit, that's fucking Jon Stewart from The Daily Show. I love that guy. Let's go see him. Otherwise, it's like, oh, we have a comedy show. Hey, all you fucking losers who aren't going to parties and banging people or drinking or doing drugs, why don't you come on out and then we'll have some activities for you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So automatically you're breaking down your audience to this one specific group of people who are probably not, you know, they're all like fucking like progressive and liberal, which I got nothing wrong with that, but in a way that it's like kind of like, all right, there's certain shit that I'm not supposed to laugh at, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, obviously, because of the administration, they don't want to promote anything that's not politically correct. And that's pretty much all I do, is everything that's not politically correct. Yeah. So that's already, you know what I mean? So it's not, people always think it's fun, but it's not really great. Unless, like I said, you take those college kids out of the college, you put them in a bar or a comedy club, you put them in your house, now it's a lot of fucking fun, you know what I mean?